Hey guys, it's Courtney and welcome back to the Trinity Stamps YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be creating a card using the Rainbow die, the Cloudy Day Scene Builder die, and a sentiment from the Rainy Days Together stamp set. So I'm going to go ahead and die cut that large frame there with those little clouds as well as the sun that is part of the same die set. I have an A2 size top folding note card here, and this fits perfectly onto an A2 size card. To add a little bit of color to the background, I am going to be using Tumbled Glass Distress ink with my blending brush here, and I'm not worried about getting a perfect blend. This is just to add a little bit of color to the background. Once everything is kind of put together, you won't really notice if your blending is perfect. You can use multiple colors here, but I just decided to go with one solid color. Once that was done, I'm going to go ahead and arrange everything onto my card base here, but I'm not sticking anything together yet. This is just for placement. I'm going to take that rainbow die and place that towards the bottom and stick that with a piece of Post-it note tape. Keep in mind that your distress ink is wet and your Post-it note tape might not stick. Remove that frame there. Open up my card panel, or card base rather, and run that through my Gemini. Also going to die cut that from a piece of fun foam, and that will stick right into that little die cut piece from the card base itself. Next, I'm going to go ahead and die cut two of the clouds from the rainbow die set, as well as the little strips there for the rainbow itself. I did end up cutting down this fun foam just a teeny tiny bit on all of the sides. When you run this through your die cutting machine, it kind of squishes the foam a little bit and makes it a little bit bigger than it's actually supposed to be. So I just trim a little bit off, and this will make it a little bit easier for my card base to open and close once everything is put together. For the little strips of my rainbow there, I'm going to add some color to these naturally. Now you can die cut this from colored cardstock, you can ink blend, you can add color to these however way you want. For me, it's easiest just to take some Copic markers. You can do some blending, you can do some variation in color here, but I've done that before and it really wasn't all that noticeable. So to make my life a little bit easier, I'm just going to color these in solid. I don't have the Copic colors here that I used because, quite honestly, I just grabbed one because I just need the colors of the rainbow. I'm not doing any shading at all here. So I colored all of my little strips there for my rainbow in rainbow colors with my Copic markers, going over the same area more than once to make sure I don't get any of those streaky lines that you sometimes get with alcohol markers. And then I'll go ahead and start assembling the card here. So for the frame, the Cloudy Day frame, I'm going to go ahead and pop this up with some foam tape. I'm taking some Scotch foam tape here, and I cut this down into pretty skinny strips to fit along the border of the Cloudy Day die here, and I also put a few pieces on the clouds as well. Removed the backing and carefully lined that up. I didn't do a great job, but I can always trim off the excess of my card base a little bit with my paper trimmer later on, or just a pair of scissors to make sure everything kind of matches up. And then for the rainbow, I'm first going to go ahead and adhere that piece of fun foam down with some wet glue. I prefer to use the wet glue. I know it takes a couple of extra minutes to dry, but this way I can kind of move it around. I have a couple of seconds to reposition it if I need to. Once that was stuck down, I'm going to go ahead and adhere my little strips for my rainbow. And at first, I did the right thing, and I put the adhesive onto the little strips, line that up onto the fun foam, and kind of tuck them right next to one another, making sure there's no gaps, or else you're not going to fit all of those little strips. But then I figured these are so skinny that I would add the adhesive to the foam itself and kind of just stick the strips down as I go. Don't do this. It made such a mess. It got so sticky that it was hard to kind of move my fingers around to get this positioned right, and they were kind of overlapping each other. My fingers ended up completely sticky and gluey, and I was having a really hard time. So don't do what I did. Just add the adhesive, whatever adhesive you choose to use. I prefer, like I said, I prefer the wet glue just because it does give me a couple of seconds to move things around if needed, but just adhere it to the strips. Don't put it on the fun foam itself. It made my life a whole lot more difficult. And I kind of had glue sticking out and squishing out in places that I didn't want it to. But once everything is dry, I can definitely fix that. So you can see that I'm definitely struggling here because the fun foam is so sticky, and I ended up having to put more adhesive on the strips anyway because that glue started drying on the fun foam. And Tombow Mono Multi Glue is repositionable, so it just ended up a sticky mess. Just a complete mess. So once I had all of these strips adhered, finally, I went ahead and scrubbed my hands for about 15 minutes to get all the glue off while the glue dries on my Rainbow here. And once the glue was dry, I took an adhesive eraser, which is a must-have tool for me in my craft room, and I just lightly go over the Rainbow to get all of that glue that kind of squished out off that Rainbow. You have to work kind of slow here. You go with really light pressure and it eventually will come up, but you don't use this as a regular eraser where you're adding a ton of pressure. Just gradually take off that glue, and I didn't have a problem. Everything was adhered together and I was able to get all those sticky areas off. So once that was done, we're going to go ahead and pop up these little clouds. I had die cut 2 of them. This is also from the Rainbow die set. I popped a little bit of Scotch foam tape on the center of these, and I just made sure that I wasn't adhering the fun foam over the Rainbow piece. So otherwise your card won't close. So the little blank area that there's no adhesive is where I kind of overlap the Rainbow, if that makes sense, so that my card will open and close. So for my sentiment, I'm going to go ahead and, first I did my little sun here. And again, just took a yellow Copic marker. You can do shading on this. I just decided to keep it nice and simple. This will go on the inside of my card, kind of tucked behind my Rainbow as you open the card. I did have to snip off just a little bit so that it fit flush with the Rainbow. You're not going to see that I cut this off, but because the fun foam is there, I couldn't really tuck it underneath. Just adhered that flat with some Tombow Mono Multi Glue. And now we'll move on to the sentiment. Using the sentiment from the Rainy Days Together stamp set, I pop this onto an acrylic block, and I kind of want to split this up. You can certainly cut the stamp, but I don't usually cut my stamps unless I absolutely have to, but that is definitely an option. I just use some Post-it note tape to mask off the areas I don't want stamped. Ink that up, remove the Post-it note tape, and then add another piece, a clean piece of Post-it note tape before I stamp it, just because I've used this stamp before. If it's a brand new stamp or you're 100% confident that your stamp is clean, you don't necessarily have to add that second piece of Post-it note tape, but I've used this stamp several times and I don't really trust myself to make sure that it's completely clean. I stamped the remaining part of the sentiment on the inside of the card, and I didn't get a great impression just because I probably just didn't ink it up perfectly. So I just took an EK Success journaling pen and just fixed up that one little area that didn't stamp out well. And last, to finish off the card, I am going to go ahead and take some Salty Tears embellishments, and these are also by Trinity. I used some glossy accents to adhere those down to just the front part of my panel, and these are just clear embellishments. And once that was done, I added a little bit of sparkle with a Spectrum Noir sparkle pen just to the Rainbow itself, and that is it. That is the card for today, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Trinity Stamps channel. Have a great day. Bye.